Without further ado, here are 7 of the most twisted stories from Greek mythology. Mount Olympus, ancient Greece. Tantalus, the son of Zeus and the nymph Plauto, was the king of Sipylos. He was often invited to dine with the gods on Mount Olympus, a privilege granted to few mortals. However, Tantalus abused this honor by stealing ambrosia and nectar, the food and drink of the gods, and sharing them with humans. He then decided to test the omniscience of the gods. He killed his son, Pelops, cooked him, and served him to the gods as a meal. The gods, aware of his gruesome act, refused to partake. As punishment for his crimes, gods condemned Tantalus to eternal torment in Tartarus, the deepest part of the underworld. He was made to stand in a pool of water beneath a fruit tree. Whenever he reached for the fruit, the branches raised his intended meal from his grasp. Whenever he bent down to drink, the water receded before he could get a sip. He was left with an eternal hunger and thirst, tantalizingly close to food and drink, but unable to satisfy his desires.
Open your mouth and shut your eyes and see what Zeus will send you.
Next up, the infamous Oedipus, born to King Laius and Queen Jocasta. Oedipus was destined for tragedy from birth. The Oracle of Delphi prophesied that he would kill his father and marry his mother. To prevent this, King Laius ordered a shepherd to abandon the infant Oedipus on a mountainside. However, the shepherd took pity on the child and gave him to a childless couple, the king and queen of Corinth. Raised as a prince, Oedipus was unaware of his true parentage. When he learned of the prophecy, he left Corinth to avoid fulfilling it. On his journey, he encountered an older man at a crossroads and, in a fit of rage, killed him. This man was his biological father, King Laius, thus unknowingly fulfilling part of the prophecy. Continuing his journey, Oedipus arrived in Thebes, which was being terrorized by the Sphinx. He solved the Sphinx's riddle, saving Thebes, and was rewarded with the throne in the hand of the widowed queen Jocasta, his biological mother. Thus, despite his efforts, Oedipus fulfilled the prophecy. Years later, a plague struck Thebes. Seeking to end it, Oedipus discovered his true parentage. Jocasta, her mother, upon realizing the truth, hanged herself, and Oedipus, in despair, blinded himself.
I weep because each time he knelt beside my banks, I could see in the depths of his eyes my own beauty reflected.
And now, Narcissus, born to the river god Cephissus and nymph Liriope, he was a hunter from Thespiae, renowned for his beauty. Narcissus's mother was told by the seer Tiresias that her son would live a long life, provided he never saw himself in a reflection. As he grew, Narcissus became increasingly vain and dismissive of those who loved him. When Narcissus was 16, he was spotted by the nymph Echo, who fell in love with him. Narcissus, however, rejected her love, leading Echo to die of heartbreak. Narcissus's rejection of Echo angered Nemesis, the goddess of revenge, who decided to punish him. She led him to a pool where he saw his own reflection in the water and fell in love with it. Unable to leave the allure of his image, Narcissus lost his will to live. He stared at his reflection until he died, turning into a gold and white flower that we now know as the Narcissus. And now, the woman who got turned into a spider. Arachne was a renowned weaver, known far and wide for her exceptional skill. Her weaving talents were not just a product of diligent practice, but were said to be a gift from Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom and crafts. Arachne, in her pride, challenged Athena to a weaving contest. The challenge was accepted, and the competition began. Athena wove a tapestry illustrating the gods in their glory and their punishment of mortals who dared to defy them. Arachne, on the other hand, chose to depict the gods' mistakes and misdeeds, highlighting their flaws and indiscretions. Athena, upon seeing Arachne's work, was filled with rage and indignation. The goddess was not only offended by the disrespectful depiction of the gods, but also by the fact that a mortal had matched her in skill. In her fury, Athena destroyed Arachne's tapestry and loom and transformed Arachne into a spider, condemning her to weave for all eternity. This transformation, however, did not end Arachne's life. Instead, it gave her a new form and a new purpose. As a spider, Arachne continued to weave, creating intricate and beautiful webs.
This world in itself is not reasonable. That is all that can be said.
Sisyphus, the king of Corinth, managed to trick death twice. He trapped Thanatos, the personification of death, in chains, preventing any mortal beings from dying. This act angered Ares, the god of war, who freed Thanatos and handed Sisyphus over to him. However, Sisyphus had another trick up his sleeve. Before his capture, he told his wife not to perform the usual funerary rites and to leave his body in the public square. This allowed him to complain to Persephone, queen of the underworld, about his improper burial, and he was granted permission to return to the land of the living to right the situation. Once back on Earth, Sisyphus didn't deliver on his promise and lived to old age before dying a natural death. But the gods had not forgotten his deceit. As a punishment for his audacity, in the afterlife, Sisyphus was condemned to eternally roll a huge boulder up a steep hill. However, just before he reached the top, the weight of the stone would become too much, and it would roll back down the hill. Sisyphus would then have to start his task all over again. This cycle was to be his fate for eternity, an endless effort with no hope of completion. And now the odd love story of Pygmalion, a king and a sculptor from the ancient city of Cyprus. Pygmalion, disappointed by the moral shortcomings of the women around him, decided to create an ivory statue embodying his ideal woman. He named this statue Galatea. The sculpture was so lifelike and exquisite that Pygmalion fell deeply in love with it. He adorned it with robes and jewels, treated it with the utmost respect, and even slept next to it at nights. During the festival of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Pygmalion made a bold prayer. He asked the goddess to grant life to his beloved statue, Galatea. Moved by his devotion and love for the statue, Aphrodite decided to grant Pygmalion's wish. When Pygmalion returned home and kissed Galatea, he was astounded to find that the statue had turned warm. His beloved Galatea, the statue he had crafted with such care and devotion, had come to life. Pygmalion and Galatea then got married and had a son named Paphos, for whom the city of Paphos in Cyprus is named.
Green fingers are better than gold.
And lastly, the tale of King Midas, the man with an insatiable greed for gold. Dionysus, the god of wine, had a fondness for Midas because the king had once helped Dionysus greatly. As a token of his gratitude, Dionysus offered to grant Midas a single wish. Midas wished that everything he touched would turn to gold. Dionysus, though hesitant, granted this wish. Midas started turning everything to gold, but soon realizing the dire consequences of his wish when he was unable to eat or drink, as his food and wine also turned to gold upon his touch. In desperation, Midas begged Dionysus to take back his golden touch. The god agreed to reverse the wish on one condition, that Midas renounce his greed. He then told him to wash in the river Tantalus to cleanse himself of the golden touch. After this incident, Midas shunned wealth and luxury, choosing instead to lead a life of simplicity. He became a follower of Pan, the god of nature, and spent his days in the countryside, far away from gold and riches. Let us know in the comment section which story creeped you out the most, and if you liked our video, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Also, check out our other videos if you liked what you saw. Your fast history provider, history but fast.